My name is Tony Sutphin. I'm from the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid here at George Washington University. And I'm here today to talk to families and students about financial aid and the processes of what you need to go through, and to give you a very basic understanding of the big world of filling out financial aid forms, scholarships, and things, and how they work at George Washington. What is financial aid? Financial aid can come in many forms of things like grants, scholarships, institutional aid, as well as loans and outside scholarships. The purpose of financial aid is to help determine what the family or student can be eligible for at a school. And it starts with many processes of looking at things like grants, scholarships, loans, parent loans, and outside awarding. Definition of financial need is the cost of attendance for a school, known as COA, minus a thing called expected family contribution that comes from the free application for financial aid. It's also called EFC, minus your outside resources or scholarships that were awarded to you, equals a thing called student need. Cost of attendance is a budget that the school creates, also known as a COA, that helps determine what a family can be eligible for within their school budget for an academic year. That can include things like tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, personal and miscellaneous expenses, and transportation allowances. Expected family contribution for a student, also known as EFC, is determined by using a method called need analysis. Primary need analysis is determined by federal methodology, which means we take the data that you've put onto the FAFSA, collect and determine what expected family contribution that the family can create by Congress to make you fall into an awarding category. Schools also use institutional methodology from data collected by a College Board, or CSS Profiles, and this collects things like non-custodial parents, as well as specific things that the institution is looking for. The free application for financial aid is also known as the FAFSA, F-A-F-S-A. Note the operative word here is free. Do not pay anyone to complete your financial aid for you, because this application can be easily done by the family with gathering things like tax information, W-2 information, and things of that sort. The FAFSA is a federal application that helps determine for schools what kind of financial aid to award you from federal funding. Application collects basic income information. It also collects it from the student and the parent. It's required for both undergraduate and graduate and professional students to look for any kind of financial assistance. It's available of October 1 of every year, and you do have to refile each academic year to determine the new financial aid eligibility. You can find the link for this FAFSA within the description of this video. College Scholarship Service is also known as the CSS Profile. This is a supplementary application required by private schools like GW and schools that allows you to collect more in-depth information of things like income and assets for the student and the parent if dependent, non-custodial parent information if your parents are separated or divorced. It requires all first-year undergraduate students to fill out the CSS profile. Complete this online application within the description of this video. A student may be selected for a thing called federal verification. This is a form where we require additional information like copies of taxes, W-2s, student statement of non-filer, household sizes to determine that. Some schools choose verification, your FAFSA may say that. At George Washington University, all new freshmen are required to do federal verification. IRS transcripts can be ordered through the federal government with no cost, and students may opt out to transfer their data from the IRS and send direct paperwork into the school. Student must be degree seeking. It means you must be pursuing a degree. You cannot just be taking classes in order to get any kind of financial aid or scholarship funding. You must be degree seeking. Students must be a citizen or eligible non-citizen to fill out the financial aid form. This means we will evaluate international students for institutional aid after they've finished 30 credit hours at George Washington University. Students must be passing satisfactory academic progress, or SAP. That means that the semester and cumulative GPA is 2.0 or higher for a student. You must pass or earn 75% of your attempted classes for an undergraduate and attain a degree within 150% of the published length of your program. Institutional aid for undergraduates requires full-time enrollment. That's 12 or more credits. A student can receive most forms of federal aid if they're a part-time student, but they can only get loans. They can't get scholarships or grants. Early decision students, meaning we're the first choice for you to come to school, is November 1st. Early decision 2 students, the deadline is January the 5th. Regular decision students means the deadline for applying is also January 5th. Current GW students and renewable applications, you should have your renewable FAFSAs in by March 1st of every year. Fall transfer students should apply by April 15th. Spring transfer students should be looking and applying by October 1st of the year prior. Federal Parent Plus loans and student private loans should be done by July 1st prior to the beginning of fall semester. Spring Parent Plus loans and student private loans should be done by October 1st prior to the beginning of the semester. The free application for financial aid, again, the FAFSA, comes out each new academic year on October 1st. The time it takes to complete this FAFSA is usually about 1 hour. This means students and parents need to be involved and have all required taxes, W-2s, banking information ready to complete this form. The time for the FAFSA for the school to receipt is based upon the student being offered acceptance into George Washington. We cannot pull the information from the federal government until the student has been offered admissions to the university. GW is a 100% verification school, as I mentioned earlier, that the students are all chosen for verification. This means all students have to send in information financial review, like things like parents' taxes, parents' W-2s, verification forms, household size, student statement of non-filers, etc. Other forms are specific to families, and they are emailed as they are accepted at George Washington, what is needed. The review of these forms can take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks based upon how busy the volume is at that time. The CSS Profile is available for the academic year also on October 1st. This form uses the same information as the family used for filing the FAFSA, but it should only take about an hour as well. This information form in the parent also comes to GW, and it only comes as a student is offered admissions. The most common error on the FAFSA and CSS are that parents are completing the form and they use the parent's social security number and not the entering students, which can cause mismatching and thus never to be able to get the financial aid data. Parents, always remember, use the student's information when you're filling out these forms. The student not sharing their social security number with their admissions office on the common application. If there's no social security number on the GW database, the FAFSA and the CSS profile can't match, so it never comes into the school. So make sure when you're filling out your common application that for the school you're putting your social security number. Students listing the wrong code for George Washington University. We have an undergraduate code, we have a graduate code, we have a medical school code, we have a code also for health professions, and we must use the code 001444 for the FAFSA for applying as an undergrad to the school. The correct code for the CSS profile is 5246. The wrong school year is entered for the student. The FAFSA and the CSF have 2 years always up for this reason. Current students are enrolled in that current academic year, where new families are applying for the next academic year. The form FAFSA and CSS will have 2 tabs. Make sure you're filling out the correct year. Filling out the wrong year would mean we will never get your financial aid data. It will sit in limbo at the federal government or CSS profiling until you correct that to the correct academic year. Gift aid are grants or scholarships that are offered to the student based upon FAFSA and CSS information. Also, we look at students' merit-based scholarship funding based upon the actual review of the admissions application. Those admissions merit scholarships are awarded by the admissions department, not by the academic or financial aid. They are offered by the admissions department. Self-help aid are things like federal work study. Let me talk about this for a moment. Work study is a wonderful program that allows the student to work on campus with a strong emphasis on the word study. Work-study allows students to work approximately 10 hours a week that allows them to pick up experience within their major or working at different places on campus to provide help and get paid for it from federal funded dollars. You are awarded federal work-study based upon your information from the FAFSA, and many times this is part-time. Notice the emphasis 10 hours. We do not expect a student or family to spend 40 hours working on work-study. Other financial options are things like local and community scholarships. These are scholarships that are awarded to students based upon their local or community. To give you a fact, last year in outside scholarships, the largest donor was churches. Churches and religious organizations offered many scholarships to incoming students to the school. Other options of looking at, there are monthly plans that GW offers that allows you to take the cost for the semester and divide it into 4 equal payments. This is done through the Student Accounts Office. There are things called Parent Plus loans, which are loans in the parent's name who borrow on behalf of the student that allows to cover things like the remaining cost of tuition, room and board if on campus or room and board if off campus. And also we look at student private loans. A caution I'm going to give you is private loans are great, but you should go through the federal funding first because they are cheaper interest rates, have better repayment terms, as opposed to private loans, which are much more expensive and you must start paying while you're in school. Please note that families sometimes, if you look at the FAFSA and the CSS, are a one-time snapshot of your family. They do not many times, especially over the last couple of years with COVID, are able to let you look at things that can drastically affect what's been reported on the FAFSA. We allow reconsideration appeals, but the reconsideration appeals require the following. You must, 1, fill out a reconsideration appeal form, which is signed by student and parent, explaining things like loss of jobs, death of a loved one, medical expenses, and things that can drastically reduce and look at what was reported on the FAFSA. These common reasons for appeals can be things like unemployment for 10 weeks or longer, reduction in salary, medical expenses that are not covered by your insurance, catastrophic property damages, and we have many students from Florida do that because of hurricanes and floodings over the last couple of years, recent change in marital status. Appeals for non-custodial parent work file remains can be submitted, but it requires the following. You must fill out a non-parent custodial form, waiver form, which requires a written letter from the family, as well as a letter of documentation for another adult, like a minister, a high school counselor, or family friend that is familiar with your situation. This allows us to waive the non-custodial parent information if we can show no contact and no income coming from that parent. Appeals can come into the school, and it usually takes 3 to 4 weeks to look at an appeal. At busy times, which is the beginning of each semester, we can have hundreds of appeals come in, and it can take longer of 4 weeks or more based upon when you turn in your appeal. So if you're going to be looking at the reconsideration appeal, you want to do it as soon as possible. Make sure you have all your documentation, you turn it in a timely fashion, and then we will follow up with you once the appeal is done to what changes that has been made. Thank you for listening as I discuss financial aid options for George Washington University. My name again is Tony Sutphin. If you have these questions or more follow-up questions, please reach out to me at finaid@gwu.edu.